Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another exciting match of Free Enterprise After Dark. My name's Rybon. I'm joined in the booth by the Blue Withered, and we also have Neon Gray on Restream. We have Mecha Link on tracking. And we've got a heck of a race tonight between Scratchdragon and mikemike34. Blue, how's it going?
It's going. Wait, who's that blue wizard guy? I don't know. Must be some wizard fellow. We are doing quite well. I mean, as you mentioned, we have a fantastic race here tonight between the notorious Scratchdragon and the infamous mikemike34. It looks like that we have a Cecil start. As from what I know of Red Moon and the seeds that I've played, a Cecil start's actually going to be of the slower starts out of the three heroes that you can get.
Yeah, so here on Red Moon, we can start with Cecil, Edge, or Fu. It's about like 45% chance for Cecil and Edge, 10% chance, or a little lower than that for Fu. But of those three, I find that Cecil tends to be the most challenging and the slowest start to begin with. Edge, you can pretty much just roll over the overworld. Fu is Fu, and Cecil is kind of a potato until you get through that mount ordeal. So both of our runners tonight in for a little bit of a challenge.
Yep, I just feel like having a Cecil start is going to be more the yes, not only challenge, but it's definitely going to showcase the skill that our runners wish to go ahead and kind of protrude. Because do you go and try and hit mount ordeals real quick? Do you want to do a little bit of looting? What bosses are going to be there? And I think depending on who you get at that ordeals one and that back attack slot is really going to determine who you take initially.
No, absolutely. And before we get too much into the game, I just want to wish a happy 13th birthday to Mike's dog. Hopefully, that little pooch is having a good time, and hopefully Mike will be racing with that in mind. But let's talk about the path both of these runners had on the way here. Mike had to get through Pots of Morpheus, unfortunately fell in the first round up in the waxing bracket. Scratchdragon also matched up against Plumerian Knight, fell down to the winning bracket after his match against him. So these two are in an interesting situation because now down here in the waning bracket, a loss takes you out of the tournament.
Yep, and not to say that a loss is just a loss, but for both of our runners here, they not only are they incredible runners themselves, but they also had incredible runners that they were going against. So, I mean, I've seen the runners that they've played before, and they are they are nothing to sneeze at. So, I mean, like it's been mentioned, we are in for an incredible match, and it looks like we are off to the races, so to speak.
All right, let's take a look at this opening. Cecil start. Our best friend forever is Porum. We have a little bit of a power couple going on. That's a blue robe. And a
And a
cursed ring.
cursed ring to start. All right, I am here for it. So also I am here for Mike's naming convention. Let's go, dude.
So sadly, we don't really have a whole lot of offense to start off. Porum, Cecil both, not exactly heavy hitting bruisers to start the game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see both of our runners try to find someone who can actually do a little bit of damage early on.
Yep. However, I am actually rather partial to a Porum, mostly because it's not going to require you to go do Zot to get that exit. I'm not sure quite off the top of my head what level Porum gets exit. I just know you don't have to go through a couple of boss checks to get it.
Nope, I believe Porum gets exit usually naturally around like level 17, 18 or so. Right after, one level exactly after Wither. So very easy for her to obtain.
Yeah, and speaking of exit, we don't even need to level her to 17 to get exit because Tella on Mike's side is going to go ahead and just have it right off the bat. On Scratchdragon's side, we see that he is looting the Watery Pass and picking up a lightsaber and a charm rod, guy hat, and to go ahead and just start fueling the equipment for his casters and that Pally Cecil once he gets online.
Yep, and also in that Watery Pass, Scratchdragon picked up that Sid, so that could be our early game damage right there, because if you look at everyone else, Cecil kind of put a potato into the Paladin. Porum, potato. Rydia, definitely potato. Tella, potato until after Ordeal. That Sid may be our offense early game.
Yep, and they become one of my favorite dishes after they die, the mashed potato.
Yeah, definitely. And at the same time, too, Sid has, long-term value. You could eventually turn into an anchor if you happen to need one. But as is now, we have some of the best anchors in our party right now with,
Yep.
Tala, with Rydia, with even Poro.
I feel like that in and of itself is always going to be one of the harder decisions to make. When you get so many characters that are typically used as anchors, I mean, it kind of comes to be that who do you actually pick to be in your party at that point?
Yep, and I mean, that's one of the interesting things about this Red Moon and Blue Moon flag set. You're limited to 7 characters. There's, well, maybe 6 characters in the flag set because Edward doesn't exactly count. But regardless, you have choices to make, and you have to make them relatively early. Who's going to be in your party? Who is not going to be in your party? Who are you going to leave, say, for a sling later on in the Tower of Wishes? These are all difficult choices our runners have to make.
Yep. Now, contrary to popular belief, Edward is still more functionally useful than Dark Knight Cecil. Unless especially if Edward picks up, if you pick up the spoon early, he suddenly turns into a glass cannon. But on the flip side, if DKC has, I believe it's the Black Sword, which will go ahead and boost his stats by +3 for everything.
I believe it's about +5 to most of the stats, at least the important stats. And yeah, that would definitely change the calculus a bit. If a spoon showed up with that Edward becomes, kind of an MVP in our party, especially with the start that we have. Cecil being able to provide back cover or cover for Edward would really increase his survivability. But it remains to be seen that Spoon's going to be here or buried somewhere in the moon after we've done our grind.
Yep. And we see a really, really early play on the Evelyn Castle by mikemike. I don't know. While I am here for an early Evelyn check, I feel like if something like a lightsaber is picked up early on, you don't have to necessarily check it, but so you can avoid double dipping.
Yeah,
That's just me.
Absolutely. It's very efficient to try to avoid double dipping Evelyn because we're seeing, both of our runners heading to Evelyn right now. And if you could avoid double dipping, you want to, because we're going to be back here after the fact, after we're done with our ordeal, to try to find a shiny sword, most likely in these trap chests. But both of our runners tonight may feel, I still don't have offense. I have Sid. I'd like a better Sid weapon, and we're the better place to find it than here in Evelyn. Maybe pull an Ogre Axe, maybe pull a Rune Axe, and we can just take care of anything on our deals faster.
Yep, and if you're brave enough and your battle speed is set correctly, well, we do have a Tella, so we can always try for a center slot recall stone, right?
If you like Lizzie in Vegas, that could be your game. I'm not really depending on it too much, but who knows? It could happen.
Not much of a gambling man?
I try to avoid it.
I don't, and that's probably why I'm here at the moment. Because not all gambles pay out. And we see Mike hitting another trap chest, trying to get all the loot possible.
I think I've noticed a few nice things that have come out of this Evelyn loot. I think I saw a crystal sword. Crystal ring. I'm pretty sure I saw a Sork robe as well, so some pretty good caster gear. But not that additional power we've been looking for our Sid, most likely.
Yep, and to go ahead and, getting that early caster gear is nice if you have someone that has the spells to back it up. Because we may just see Rydia hit things, but in the form of using a Blarg or a Leviathan.
Sure thing. Sadly, not finding that just yet. That Hourglass 2, though, very interesting. Could be used. 2 longswords, sadly, no edge in the seed. 2 Hourglass 2s, never mind. We really could take one of the trap chests right now. Wouldn't recommend it. It takes too long to actually do, but it's an option.
Yep, it's, let's see, I'm trying to think. That would be, which one would you go and take with 2 Hourglass 2s? I would say the Lamia chest.
Yeah, that wouldn't be so bad. Low enough HP from the two black cats and the Lamia itself. Sid wouldn't take too long to knock it down. But instead, Mike's saying, I'm going to hold on to those hourglass tubes for now. I'm going to go up ordeals, and hopefully I don't run into an evil wall or a brick wall or anything like that up here. That's going to derail my plans to turn this Dark Knight into a paladin.
Yep, and speaking of characters that can use all the caster gear we've been getting, there is a Palom. And will we say goodbye to the Sit? Have a reflect crew? Nope, that looks like a adios to the Rydia.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably the correct drop here. By dropping Rydia, you can preserve her in the Tower of Wishes for a slingshot later on, should a Darkness Prism materialize.
Yep, because that's a little over, was that 1.3 million to get her to nuke?
Just over 1 million, I believe, and that is a lot of XP. You are not going to get her there anytime soon, so you can have anyone be your anchor right now. We had that starting cursing after all. And at the same time, you don't really want to drop Sid because he's kind of your offense right now. We do have access to Twin, however, with the pick with that Palom, which should make just about everything on this ordeal pretty doable.
Yep, and actually, also seeing Mike on his side, putting Sid in the middle because in this on the overworld, you do want that faster anchor. And starting Sid, if memory serves, he's got a base 19 agility, which for this particular party is going to be the fastest.
Base 9 agility, correct, but I also believe that Mike put on the crystal ring, so that's actually 14 agility. That's a pretty speedy Sid right now for this early in the game.
Very speedy Sid with a lot of HP. That is actually kind of terrifying.
Now, Mike's doing something that I love doing up here on Ordeals, which is, hey, you got a Siren, let's pop the Siren, 2 Lamias pop out, or Liliths pop out, 5,500 XP, takes that, that Palom you just picked up, gives him all his level 2 spells, really increases his utility for the 2 upcoming fights.
Yep,
sometimes, though, some people would like to save that until after you turn Cecil into a paladin so you can slingshot him as well, but Mike really wants that offense right now by the looks of it.
Yep, and honestly, I kind of toyed with the idea recently of just killing off my Dark Knight Cecil, so this way everyone else can go ahead and get the extra XP. Because once he turns into that paladin, he just resets back to level 1.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a Shira for that first fight on Man Ordeals.
So not a punchy spot here at all. I think this is probably the lowest physical offense location in the game. So Sarah's not going to hit you very hard, but her heals are going to heal her for probably more damage than you can inflict in a single blow. So we're going to have to Life Glitch or double Star Veil to get through this fight.
Yep, and speaking of objectives, Shira will be the first objective on the board, as we do see Scratchdragon, but literally right behind Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And looking at the bosses here, I mean, we do have actually some pretty rude bosses. We have Wyvern and CPU along with Mom Bomb. Wyvern's never fun anywhere, just about. CPU in the wrong spot. I mean, any of these bosses in the wrong spot is gonna hurt, but I think Wyvern at the top of the tower is going to be pretty rude.
Oh yeah, that's one of the interesting things about Red Moon. All these bosses are pretty much hand-picked, hand-curated by the Flag developers who try to pick the worst, meanest, nastiest bosses out there. And for the most part, these are the kind of bosses you want to see early game, not late game.
Yep, the sooner that you can see some of the bosses, the better. With the exception of Mom Bomb. Mom Bomb is always going to have that 10,000 HP sort of, how would you say, like buffer or shield, that when she goes into the phase between first form and second form, it's always going to be there. So no matter where you see her, it's going to be rude. Probably not good to see early on.
That's true. But speaking of not good to see early on, here's the back attack Golbez.
Yes, good old back attack Trollbez.
See, a little unfortunate here because I don't believe that Mike has learned any spells yet that he could throw onto his party to prevent his party from being paralyzed, but he does have that crystal ring, so Sid will be able to act. Oh, he moved the crystal ring over to Palom. Interesting.
Yep. Not a bad play. Hallam is rather squishy, so having someone who can actually be a good source of DPS, not getting hit by that will be handy.
Yep, but that's not going to prevent Palom from being eaten by Shadow here. So, roll the dice, figure out who we got at the end of this.
Hey, I've had my days where I'm hungry enough that I'm going to eat a child. No. Snakes make no difference. They have no bias. They are just hungry, and they will eat small children.
Yep, just they ate one right there.
Exactly.
The wrong one, unfortunately. So this is a bit of the 50-50 now for Mike. He's going to have a very limited window of time to try to throw a Star Veil up before Golbez throws out a spell and murder the party, because the magic here is pretty high.
Yep, because I believe on the overworld, this spot, and actually surprisingly enough, the Mist Cave will actually have higher than should be magic power, which is a little alarming when you think about it.
Yeah, that's a 2k Lid 3 out there. Fire 2 coming out, doing about 1100 damage. This Thor Rage might be a little shy from triggering Golbez. Nope, we're through.
Wow.
So Mike is not caught flat-footed by that Golbez back attack, and we'll have a little bit of a lead over Scratchdragon, who is still fighting Thesura over at Ordeals 1.
You know what? I absolutely love the fact that popping the Thor Rage for 1 damage is going to tilt into the dialogue. I'm here. I love it. And with that is Mount Ordeal's hard required 2 for 2. Will we see a third objective pop up here?
Triple required ordeals? I'd love it. At the same time, too, we'll at least unlock Cecil, we'll unlock Tella. We're going to have a lot more power going forward. And, our offensive woes should be gone for the most part.
Yeah, and there's a pink tail. So, not going to be an adamant armor, but, I mean, free items are free items.
So that brings up an interesting question for both Mike and Scratchdragon when he finds his pink tail as well. Buying it up here in the changing room, not anything that we need today, unfortunately. So only a double required ordeal, not a triple required. But that pink tail represents a question, which is a lot of people normally would head over to Evelyn Castle, try to hit the 3 trap chests over there, see if I can get a crystal sword, an Excal, a shiny stick for my Cecil, my newly minted paladin. But that pink tail has a pretty decent shot of being just that. And you won't have to spend any additional time in Evelyn if you don't want to. Normally, you may not want to do that on other flag sets because, well, what if I have a Magma key entry or to the underground? What if I don't find my hook for the next hour? But we're going to find a hook. Hook is required here at both Red Moon and Blue Moon, so it'll be interesting to see if Mike and Scratchdragon both decide to seek a hook or go to Evelyn Castle immediately after this.
Yep, I kind of feel like, well, I suppose that would also depend on where, you go ahead and find the hook at. If you find it in a spot that's just gonna be too far out the way for that pink tail turn in, you'll probably want to go ahead and do a save scum. Just save it, check the pink tail, because if you're not too concerned about levels and you're really comfortable with the gear that you've got and the party composition, where you can go ahead and kind of start down that hook route, or maybe go turn in the pink tail, and if the reward is good enough, you go just kind of blow up Evelyn Castle. Because we have gotten some decent loot, the Charm Rod, the Sork Robe, the Crystal Ring, but we want maybe just a little bit more, if not necessarily for the gear to equip on the party, but more so money. Because, you and I both know that in this particular flag set, some of the underworld shops tend to have just the right item you want, and not enough gil to get it.
Yep, that's true. Money can be, because a lot of players are incentivized to loot as little as possible, no more than necessary. But by doing so, you don't have that 100,000 gil lying around, that big stack of cash to buy, camping gear, which we don't have, or Ethers, which we don't start with, or Cure 2s, which we don't start with.
Camping gear? What's that? That's a myth.
There's an REI somewhere here in this world. I just don't know where it is. But they have tents, they have cabins, and I'm sure both of our runners would like to know where they're at. Scratchdragon, meanwhile, is through that Golbez and will be following Mike down this mountain pretty soon.
Yep, he's going down the mountain with a palisasso, yeah. And we see on Mike's side going after Dr. Luggage or Dr. Dialogue, depending on your perspective of the man.
Yeah, not our favorite boss in this game. Just takes way too long to get through, unfortunately. But shouldn't be too hard for Mike. He does have that light sword that he found in Watery Pass, as does Scratchdragon. So both of these Cecils will be relatively decently geared, relatively capable of inflicting pain early on.
Yep, and Scratchdragon getting the Pally Cecil equipped with that lightsaber. Just gonna go ahead and start doing some bonking damage. Twin's gonna essentially a repeat. Vigan to go ahead and take him out real quick. Even Tella doing some bonk damage. Okay, Scratchdragon through that fight, nice and easy.
All right, we'll see if Scratchdragon follows Mike to Fabul, or maybe diverse and does something else, maybe like Baron Inn or off to Emlyn Castle. But we're about to find out whether Fabul was required or not.
Stay tuned for next time on
Free Enterprise Z.
So my guess is that Mike is actually in fact going to go ahead and turn in that pigtail. I saw some menuing during the fight and moving that pigtail right to the top. It looks like you know what, that was a good call for Fabul. Tower key is going to be a nice, efficient routing for when they get underground, since you're already right in front of the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, it's always nice to have some kind of guidance once you get through that hook route. It could be a tower key, it could be a pad, but something that will guide you or direct you once you get underground, because otherwise, you may just default to less efficient checks, such as Keyless Tower or Dwarf Castle, or heading down to the same march and looking at bosses that you can't actually beat right now because you may not be powerful enough. So that tower key could pay dividends, especially if it does eventually lead to a pan. And if you're trying to single dip Fabul, fade it as long as possible, you're not going to be happy if the pan lies behind that Fabul defense through a long chain.
Yep. And I spaced out for a second. I don't believe that was a required boss fight on Hobbs.
No, it wasn't. That was a Kaipo Guards, I believe.
Ah, yes, a rather free fight, but not a required fight.
Or it could have been Baron Guards. I'm getting all my C's mixed up, but either way, it was some flavor of Baron Guards. Nice chunk of about 4k XP total, but we don't need that right now.
Yep. We don't need that XP in our lives. Not on this seed. Not today.
But what we do need, whatever's behind this Antlion Cave, I feel like.
I see a Leviathan, which will still hurt here a bit, but with that Pally Cecil having a lightsaber, because words exist. We'll just go ahead and take him down real quick. Tell him with the virus. Not quite enough to take him down, but little bit of teaming up to take the Leviathan down, and I am hoping for a Darkness Crystal from Antlion Cave.
That'd be exciting.
Be
and we do not get one, unfortunately.
Hey, but we got our Siren back.
Well, no we don't, because we reset out. Mike said, I don't want that.
Don't need any of that experience, none of that item. And it looks like Mike is going back to the waterfall to take on that D-Mist.
Yep, so we have 2 key item checks remaining on this overworld. One, this D-Mist, and the other one, I believe, is still the Baron Inn.
You are absolutely correct, yes.
Yes, this definitely could be our hook, our underground access, waiting here behind this D-Mist. And if so, Mike was very wise to wait until this particular moment to take on this D-Mist, because this is a very fast and relatively healthy position for an overworld check. I want to say a little over 2,000 HP.
Yep, and just to go ahead and give a quick call out. We have a raid from Free Enterprise 2, Welcome on in, Raiders. Please do not spoil anything. The newspapers are real and they do hurt. But we do welcome you in to go and join us in this race of mikemike34 versus Scratchdragon. We hope you enjoy. Currently, we are with both of our runners at 2 out of 7 bosses, a double required manner of deals, and neither of our runners yet have found the hook. So that pink tail is just going to be a pink tail.
That pink tail could be anything. It could be a crystal sword, an Excalibur, a white shirt. It could even be a pink tail.
You know what? I think it's actually been a while since I've seen the pink tail turn into a moon veil.
Not the most useless item out there, actually.
No, it's actually a rather underrated item. You know, because you just see moon veil, and most people just think that it's a slightly extended duration of a star veil, when it actually has damage reduction capabilities to it as well.
Yep, it makes you permanently, physically immune to damage. But it does indeed have a much longer duration on the Star Veil properties for reflection properties. We just have a Mylon Z here in the Demon's Cave, so nothing too exciting there, but let's see if beating up Iridia's mom was worth it.
Yeah, we are going to say, hello, friend, and she's going to look back and give us a hook. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So a question comes up. I mean, obviously we know we want to go do the hook route. We're gonna do the pink tail on Mike's side. We know because we saw that get shifted up to the top of his inventory. I mean, do you go? Oh, actually, that answers my question right there. Since you're right there next to Baron, go ahead and knock out that Baron in, and see what they give you.
I think Baron is definitely the right play here because you have a Tella, you have a Iridia waiting for you in the Tower of Wishes, you have some, you have these two kids right here, they all want D Machine, they want XP, they want to grow up, they want to be, real white mages and black mages. But they can't do that without, nearly a million XP. So by leaving a key item check unchecked before, going underground, very dangerous because there's a Darkness Crystal here at the Baron Inn, and your opponent finds it, you're at a huge disadvantage early on.
Yep, we see, speaking of experience differences, we do see Scratchdragon keeping that Siren, which, I mean, when you think about it, actually is a bit of a good play, because you have Tala online with exit, so, and you got back the Siren, so when you get underground, maybe go knock out a couple of eggs, get a little bit of early grind on, so this way you have less difficulty for what you find afterwards.
Sure, that Siren is not a terrible find, and it may have some eventual utility too, as you mentioned. So, yeah, Scratch deciding it is worth it for him, and he'll be following Mike's pathing pretty much stride for stride, heading over to this waterfall, remembering that Demon is waiting.
Yeah, and we see Mike through the Baron in fight. We will see if we get a key item or not.
And we get a pan. Well, interesting.
I mean, you want to talk about literally a straight and narrow path, because I foresee just literally going and doing all the tower, then moving over to the Self Cave, getting that done, and literally just doing a predefined loop.
Absolutely. Because we have both chaining key items that lead underground, both the pen and the tower key, we have a lot of options once we get down there in order to try to find, our Darkness Crystal, which is, the real prize that both of these runs are probably looking for right now. Darkness Crystal unlocks 8 additional bosses, unlocks a very quick and very efficient grind and beat machine for your mages. This may very well come down to who finds the Darkness Crystal first and leverages it most.
Yep, and we see Mike setting up a save scum to go and check that pigtail real quick in the event that it's not anything useful.
But is this something useful? It is.
Moonveil. Yeah. I think that's about the first time I've actually willed something into existence in one of these seeds.
Yeah, a little bit of commentator curse or, blessing there. It depends on whether you like the Moonveil or not, but, whatever your timer was at for, the last time you saw a Moonveil come from the pigtail, because you have to restart it.
Ooh, it's honestly, it's been a while, actually. but we will see. I'll go ahead and run a seed after this and find out if I'm starting to inherit the curse or the gift of willing certain things into existence on these flag sets.
You are a wizard after all.
You know what? I am.
Scratchdragon has his hook as well, and Mike not happy with his equipment situation. Will be knocking out Evelyn Castle, looking for that Crystal Sword, that Avenger, that Excal, anything that he can use to make this hook route a lot more palatable.
Yep, and honestly, lightsaber is nice with that 99/99, but it's nothing quite like an Excal or a Crystal Sword.
But it's still, far better than what we started with, which was a silver staff. So you can get through the game with his light sword, but if there is a crystal sword here and your opponent finds it, again, huge disadvantage. So this is, I think, the safe and conservative play here from Mike.
Yep, and we do see Tella attempt to do a center slot Stonecast and not succeed.
Yeah, that's actually unfortunate for Mike. Round 2 is a little better, though. One thing I noticed Mike doing prior to coming to Evelyn is that he threw a bunch of Black Mage equipment on Tella. Threw on a Gaia hat, threw on a Charm Rod, which actually will increase the accuracy of that Stonecast. So, good play on his part.
Yep, and we do see divergence happening with both of our runners. Mike still continuing through the Evelyn Castle, while Scratchdragon making his way down the hook route, discovering some hourglasses and elixirs. Because if you find that darkness crystal sooner than later, you're gonna need those. Pop up to the moon, go ahead and get your D-money grind on early.
Now, what's interesting here is that Scratchdragon is choosing to fade. Actually, not choosing to fade Evelyn. Just checking the chops here. Okay. I thought he may have just been diving the hook route. That's clearly not the case. We also found 2 hourglasses in Evelyn, so both of our runners will be able to use either one of those on these trap chests if they're interested in, trying to make it a little more free, a little more easy. But Tell to just making it look easy with its discount Midas Touch, turning everything to stone today.
I believe that is, to use the D&D term, that is flesh to stone. Although, actually, I say that when he uses it on skeletons and a golem. This is a finely crafted video game, folks, where you can stone a stone man. Well, technically a stale man, not a stone man, because stone man can't be... Stone men can't be stoned, but stale men can.
They can be stoned even further than they already are.
Exactly.
But
you want to talk about being between a rock and a hard place? Well, you've come to the right place.
But notably, Mike reset out of that pink tail, didn't want that moon veil, finds one over here in Evelyn anyway. He just can't escape it.
The wrath of a moon veil.
And will Tella be 3 for 4 on stone? He will. Because Tella is just making
fire.
Everything rock hard today.
It's a rocking good time.
It is. Tella is rocking, and are we going to get a crystal sword? No. I thought crystal. I got excited for a moment.
Wrong kind of crystal. So I guess we can call him Mega Man, because he's turning all these guys to stone. He's the Rock Man.
Man, that's really dating both you and I right now, but I guess we could.
In a good way. We all love Mega Man 2, right?
It was clearly the best of the NES Mega Mans, and I will fight anyone who said that 3 is better. But
what's a Mega Man 3?
A Mega Man 3 is an inferior game compared to Mega Man 2 because it does not have the Metal Blade.
Nope, and it's not quite the X series. That being said, on Scratchdragon's side, we see him making his way through the Evelyn Castle, taking full advantage of those hourglasses.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of hourglass acquiring, Mike splitting his funds up between hourglasses and an elixir. I have a feeling that somebody is going to be doing a D machine grind in their not too distant future.
Yep. Now we do start with 2 elixirs on Red Moon as part of the Not Demi kit that we get, which is usually enough for at least 16 machines. Tella can, especially because I believe we also found a Soma drop at some point, I think in Evan Castle. Tella will easily be able to kill 6, maybe 7 D machines with the MP he starts with and the MP restoration from those elixirs. That third one, however, will probably let him kill up to about 10, which is what you're going to need if you want Palom and Porum to make it to White and Duke as well, because they are no longer slingshotable.
Yep, and it will also be good because it looks like, well, there's a strong chance that, if we go ahead and leave Sid on the floor, that he can just kind of sit there and be the anchor. But having that, I think, because we did see an Ether 2 get picked up on ordeals. So, at least on Mike's side, we've got 3 elixirs and an Ether 2. And I think that's a pretty good safety net for doing D machines. In the event that something goes wrong, or if you come up against a particularly nasty fight, you've got a little bit of a buffer.
Speaking of a buffer, Scratchdragon finding other ones over in Troya, and he found that RAI we were talking about. 10 cabins picked up on Scratchdragon's side. So he has just about everything he's looking for, I think, in terms of item shopping in order to move forward with this seed.
Although I didn't see it, so it didn't happen. No.
Rewind the tape. Neon.
Go. I am a firm believer and a firm supporter of the premium Coco cabins.
Not on this flag set, I'm afraid. Only on, I believe, T Standard? No, not T Standard. T Pro, maybe? No, I don't know.
I think it's S cabin.
Oh, that too. Yeah, those are very premium.
The premiumest of premium. All right, we see a little bit of inventory management on Scratchdragon's side. Definitely, picking up some more of those life pots. Definitely gonna need those if you're wanting to do, well, D machine grind, and in the event that, again, you run into a particularly nasty fight where you just can't quite keep your party members alive.
Sure, we could definitely run into one of these nasty fights down here on this hook route, which Mike is currently tackling at the moment. We're about to see who's at the King Queen Evelyn spot. Definitely a number of very nasty, very terrible bosses out there that could give pause to any runner of the caliber of Mike and Scratchdragon. Very high on both sides. Could be something like, say, an Ogopogo or an Evil Wall just waiting to knock down your entire party here at the very first punchy spot.
Yep, and that is an elements. So
a required element.
Yeah, so that's
that
is the thing.
Because this is a punchy spot, unfortunately. Whoever gets hit here is probably gonna have a bad day.
And I don't think we saw any mage killing gear. So no mute knives, no rune axes. So it's it might be a little tricky to try and pull off.
Not that tricky. Just one click will do it.
I'd say he's gone bonkers, but really he's gone quackers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Quack Kid's doing what Quack Kid does and showing us that our 25k of Dark Elf is waiting for us here. Not even saving. Man after my own heart, Mike throwing caution to the wind, saying, I can take care of this. And, with Telecasting Week, with Hourglass 2s in our inventory, he probably can.
Yep. Now, I haven't played as many Red Moon scenes, but in the Dark Elf second form, he does or does not have the boss. I don't think he has the boss bit on.
It's kind of awkward. He doesn't have the boss bit, but you cannot fatal him or coffin him or anything like that. No instant death, but he can be stopped. He can be weaked, which really just makes the fight much quicker.
In that particular pose, I feel like he's doing the hammer dance. So he's you just gotta stop. Hammer time.
Got a little bit of a squat going on right there. Just really working on his glutes, working on his calves. Gotta respect a guy that doesn't skip leg day.
Yep, no, and especially when that's all he does is leg day. Because he just, it's weird. Like, he goes from a guy who does nothing but leg day into a form where he skipped like all the leg days.
Hmm. He does at least still have legs in this form, though. Look at those tiny little things.
I mean, he is rather noodly. We see Mike use the very quick concept of weakening the second form and just a quick bonk and through the hook route. Uh, that has by far got to be one of the fastest hook routes I've seen.
Oh yeah, just one quake, couple bonks, you throw out a weak, you bonk one more time, we're done. Yeah, Mike is going to be pitfalling here around the 37-minute and 32-second mark, hitting this terrible pitfall that we all just haven't figured out a way to get around it just yet.
Yep.
Scratchdragon, however, hot on his heels, just had these two quick fights to get through, and he'll be doing his pitfall as well.
So, but a quick trap chest on the way.
So this is interesting. It's a relatively low chance to pull a tier 8 from here on the hook route. We've had four mad ogre chests. But regardless, if he does happen to pull something like a shiny sword, that would be a huge advantage for Scratchdragon, even though it's taking him a little bit of time right now.
Yep. Although a little bit of time for a huge, like something like a crystal sword or an Excal is well worth the little bit of extra time that it took.
Meanwhile, Mike underground deciding to go to Dwarf Castle first. Does have the pan, does have the tower key, so a lot of options available to him right now. But he's thinking maybe shopping, maybe he wants some Bacchus lines, maybe he just wants to check these two bosses because, 3 bosses down, this could be boss number 4. No, it's just vanilla Calbrena. Boss number 4 could be waiting, however, in the second spot of Dwarf Castle. And our Darkness Crystal could be here too. Who knows? This Dwarf Castle could be very valuable, or just a big womp.
Yep, there's not very often that I'm a fan of seeing a particular boss in its vanilla location, uh, than the Calbrena dolls in their vanilla spot because you've got the creepy doll aesthetic, you've got the creepy doll music going. It all just kind of ties in and just adds to the sort of nostalgic nuance.
Mm-hmm.
Which with Halloween right around the corner, I'm here for. I'm down.
Oh, dude, I completely forgot about Halloween.
How how dare you? How dare you forget about the greatest holiday of the year?
Excuse me, Flag Day is a thing.
Yeah, I am not denoting or denouncing or underappreciating Flag Day. I'm just saying Halloween. Because you can have flags on Halloween. Guards on the Baron guards on the second dwarf fight. We are just getting a lot of really speedy fights right now.
Yeah, so 2 womps here in Dwarf Castle. Neither of these bosses require first boss as well, reduced XP. Normally I like doing Dwarf because you can get a nice 20k XP from both locations. Nice little infusion for your mages, but we're probably going to escape here with only about 25k rather than 40k through these 2 fights, which is kind of disappointing actually.
A little bit. Did you happen to see what Scratchdragon got out of that trap chest?
He got an Aegis shield, which, with a very nice shield, major resistance, pretty good magic evasion for Cecil, but not exactly what we were looking for.
Nope, not so much. But for the moment, it's not the worst thing. Uh, without having something like an Avenger sword, um, having the Aegis shield will be very nice if you go ahead and see something like a mom bomb or someone who just punches really hard at a difficult spot. You just go ahead and throw Cecil back there doing some Ali Cecil cover strats.
Sure thing. And out of this Dwarf Castle, we get a very nice package. Could be very valuable for either of our runners because we do check that. That had a pretty decent shot, I want to say 12%-ish, of being one of the bosses we need. And one thing I want to note too over on Scratchdragon's side is not often you see a party-wide glare go off on like a 200 HP Palom, and he survived and just shrugged it off.
Yep, and dare I say, even an Edward would have survived that.
But Mike decided to chase this pan after a little bit of disappointment over at Dwarf Castle. Um, he may be heading up to Fabul shortly after this to go turn it in or go down to the Fey March and check your freebie there because I think both of our runners are still on a hunt for that Darkness Crystal. The moment you find it, the moment you're grinding, you get your double nuke, you get your white, you're feeling pretty good.
Yep. Question is, does he stop at the tower on his way back up to the surface? That is a grand old white shirt, which actually not bad to see right now. Go ahead and toss that on the forum for a little extra healing later on.
Alternatively, you could throw it on your Cecil if you don't have anything better. That white shirt is actually one of his best pieces of equipment that he can throw on, both for magic defense, and it also makes his tier 2s, actually usable.
Yep.
I dare say.
And honestly, it is when it's only your first one, it's a really good piece of gear. When it's your 47,000th, not so much.
You have a lot of money at that point, but Mike is chasing this pan down as quickly as possible, realizes it's 1, 2, 3 key item checks. First one with a Womp, number 2 and number 3, either one could be that Darkness Crystal. Because we're quickly running out of checks where that Darkness Crystal could be after that Dwarf Castle ended up being a whole lot of nothing.
Yep. And let's see if Sheila has the goods. As a power shirt, all right, and a darkness crystal.
All right.
The seed is opened up.
Yep, so we have access to just about every part of the world right now, but we still have a lot of key items gating where our bosses could be. We have an Earth Crystal, which gates one boss, Twin Harp, the Baron Key, which gates 2 bosses, as well as that Baigan 1 spot, which had a blue rope that could have been our Alt Gauntlet. We don't know just yet, as well as that Luca Key. So we have a lot of boss checks locked to us right now.
Yep, and I believe to use the term I heard recently, it is go mode -4, because we are missing the Baron Key, the Earth Crystal, Luca Key, and Twin Harp.
Let's see. We are minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bosses right now. Because that 3 spots behind Baron, 1 behind Earth, 1 behind Luca, and 1 behind Twin Harp. Normally people would say only 2 behind Baron because you would see that starting boss give you a whole lot of nothing or be a boss you don't want, but in this case that blue robe definitely could be that Alt Gauntlet.
Yep, it is a 50-50 chance.
Mm-hmm. So with 6 bosses locked, it's difficult to pull the trigger on phase check mode right now, but that's a problem for future Mike and eventually future Scratchdragon. Right now, the time for probably D-Machine. So Rydia, get on. We're going to go save the world.
Yep, and we see Scratchdragon double checking to see what the job dwarf is today, and I do believe I saw an aerospace engineer.
That poor job dwarf can never hold down a job.
Nope, but he is the world's most sought out contractor. All right, we see Scratchdragon also going down to the Sylph Cave to chase that pan.
Now it gets very interesting if Scratchdragon will chase that pan immediately. Go check out Sheila 1 and 2 because he'll be in his D-Machine grind shortly after Mike and may end up fading that Dwarf Castle, which is a whole lot of nothing.
Yep, that is entirely possible because from the Sylph Cave, you have the Tower of Babel, which you have the Tower Key, and just a straight shot right back up to the surface. So I mean, when it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 key item checks, just in a straight shot. I mean, in my opinion, you do the tower because that's also 2 more boss checks.
Mm-hmm.
Unless
I have to note, I didn't see who was at the top of the tower when we fell down that hook route. Did you?
Nope. I mean, once our runners started kind of heading down underground, there was a little bit going on with a bit of divergence on that route. So top of tower apparently was Bahamut, which is a relatively free fight for both of our runners because just go ahead and Zerk Cecil and call it the day.
Sure, but sadly not one of the bosses we're looking for today. So
nope, which is perfectly fine because having that tower key, it's not as far of a run into the super cannon room.
That's correct. And we're seeing Scratchdragon making the Sheila play. So that'll be a Darkness Crystal on his end very quickly. Scratchdragon also equipped with ethers and everything else that he needs for this D Machine grind. So we should be seeing dueling D Machine grind very shortly.
It's like dueling pianos, but, better.
Yeah, way better. Or dueling banjos. Only better than that, too.
Although, I kind of wondered what dueling D machines, with all those weeks flying around, sounds like. I imagine, like, just mechanical cows stuck in a tornado. Just clank, 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 clank.
Yeah, trying to ride a mechanical bull during a typhoon.
I feel like there's at least one person in the world who's done that. And lived.
I have a feeling they live in Florida.
I feel like you're not wrong.
Hey, Maga Sisters over there at Elements. That is not 65k of Maga Sisters. That's 100k plus of Maga Sisters. That's a very healthy 3 girls, and we're going to deal with them later. They're required. That is boss number 4 for Mike Mike. But, yeah, don't want to do it right now.
But, Rybon, my math is terrible. I thought it was only capped at 65,000 for a boss. How did they have 110,000?
There are 3 of them, and they, math does funny things when there are multiple entities at that location. Like if you found D Lunars up there, you would think, oh, they have 32,500 HP each, right? Nope. Not at all. That is a very healthy set of 3 sisters, and you're going to want Nuke, Nuke, and White to deal with them.
Yep, and at least, going ahead and taking a peep at that boss to see what's there, so you can at least prep yourself for what you want to go after. And we do see Mike doing the D machine manipulation real quick. Go ahead and get that set up, and then looks like Scratchdragon is going to go ahead and purchase some more ethers, and then go ahead and pop on out.
Scratchdragon is very well set up for a very long D machine grind if he wants to. But interesting to see what he does here. He may just pop his head back to Dwarf, wants to leave no stone unturned and check these 2 bosses here. He will be rewarded with the package from the completion of Dwarf Castle, but we already know the 2 bosses here, Calbrena and I believe Darren Gars, not exactly required to see. But yeah, we are well underway on Mike's side for D machines. So 6 D machines here with life glitches. We'll get that Rydia, who is at base level, to nuke. But I think as I mentioned earlier, that Palom, that Porum, they are both well beyond, slingshotty at this point. So in order to ensure they get to White and nuke themselves, we'll probably have to do 10 to 11 D machines with life glitches. So if you haven't seen Rydia with Meteo, you might.
Hey, we may actually see in upwards of 3 party members with Meteo.
Oh yeah, definitely. That Tella's gonna be sticking around as our anchor right now.
Yep.
And oddly enough, Palom learned that Meteo before he learned the nuke.
Which is kind of odd when you think about it.
Yeah, a little strange.
It's okay. Little child learning the strongest spell in the world before, well, Meteo's kind of like the strongest AoE in the world.
Yeah, it's kind of like AoE nuke, but it takes forever to cast. Maybe we should petition, Scala and Zoe and everyone else to make Meteo a 0 cast time. That'd make it fun.
I can see. Well, I would think that you can make Meteo a 0 cast time if you run buffer at just the right frame.
I guess I don't understand run buffering then, but if anyone can do it, I believe in you, Blue.
By the power that is believed in me, I will take that and forward it on to those who have better reactionary time than me. So to those of you who can successfully run buffer out there, we believe in you. With the power of friendship.
Mm-hmm. So I think we're at least 2 D machines in. I wonder how many Mike will do, and whether Scratchdragon will continue clearing Earth or head up and do D machines as well. Because while Mike is up here knocking out D machines and accidentally casting weak on the Searcher, unfortunately, this is an interesting situation because Scratchdragon can be continuing to clear, like Fey March. No one has poked their head into Fey March yet. There could be 2 bosses down there, and any number of other key items to include like a Baron key that would unlock additional bosses for us to check. Those 3 Maga Sisters at 100k plus HP may not even be required.
Nope. And I haven't done too many D machine grinds myself, but I don't think I've put myself in this scenario where I accidentally weak the alarm, or the Searcher in this case rather. What would one do in the event that they've gone ahead and hit the Searcher with a weak? Because obviously you don't want to kill it because you want to go ahead and keep doing your D machine grind.
No, absolutely. You don't want to ruin your slingshot or anything like that. So, as we saw, I believe we saw Mike throw a Cure 3 item onto that Searcher in order to restore about 800 HP. Now, to be perfectly certain myself, I'd probably have telecast a Cure 4 on it, because that heals percentage base when you single target it, to make sure that it actually heals to full HP. But just like you, I actually haven't run into the situation yet, so I don't know exactly the best way to get out of the situation.
Yeah, and I think that, you explained it very well in that, where if you hit it with a Cure 3 pot or Tele with a Cure 4, it's going to go ahead and put you above the threshold for where weak would otherwise leave you, because if memory serves, weak only leaves you with like maybe at most 5-ish hit points. Whereas the Thor Rage is only going to do 1 damage, but when it's below, when an enemy is below that 10 hit point mark, even if Thor Rage is at 1 damage, is going to mess up your grind.
Scratchdragon's down here in Fey March. I think he found some Bacchus wines for sale.
Yeah, he definitely did.
I also found a Valvalis and a Lulu Sparkle, which was an Ogo Pogo, so not the Wyvern we're looking for.
Yes, the Wyvern. Your Wyvern is in another castle, or stuck inside.
One thing I've been wanting to share is, did you know that Ogo Pogo is Canadian?
I did not know this.
So Ogo Pogo is actually like a Canadian Loch Ness Monster. Apparently, he is a Canadian folklore type monster that lives in New Brunswick, I believe, in some kind of lake. It's interesting. The Wikipedia page on it and everything.
I don't know what to say. That is both amazing and a little terrifying, but amazing nonetheless.
I almost want to call him Canadian Bigfoot, but he's not hairy, apparently.
I mean, those scales, they could be fuzzy.
They could be. No one had the picture of him.
No-go? We're going to start making songs. Like, Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't Ogo Pogo.
I'm just gonna. We could just make songs while they beat machine, but we'd probably chase everyone out of chat, I'm afraid.
Probably, and we don't want them to do that. Because we do want to go ahead and see where the epicness of this race will take us. Because we do see, right now, well, we do know that Scratchdragon, while having checked the Fey March, will have some assistance with the Berserk, after having picked up some Bacchus wines, but is making his way over to Giant Rebel to go ahead and start his Steam Machine grind and go ahead and peep his 110k Maga Sisters.
Yep, so these Maga Sisters will not go unknown to Scratchdragon, but he's a little bit behind in his grind right now. He is armed with more knowledge, having gone down to that same march and seen what is down there. But Mike should be, I'm thinking, at least halfway through done with his D Machine grind. I'm sure at least 5 or 6 have been killed, and it looks like he's going to be doing a sufficient amount to get the twins to their ultimate spell as well. So we probably still have another 3 to 4 minutes of D Machine for Mike, and probably a good 7 minutes of D Machine waiting for Scratchdragon up here.
Yep, and I do believe that was Mike's 6th D Machine. money, D machine, potato, mechanical, dead. Okay, so 771,000 experience on Mike Mike's side. Um, don't that that is enough to get to Medio. However, that is not going to be enough to go ahead and get Rydia up to Nuke.
Yep. So we're a little short, but I think this may be on purpose from Mike. The reason being, we got Nuke on Rydia, which is great, and we can just berserk up that Cecil with that Porum. That Palom still has his Quake. He'll be able to cast that to get through these Mega Sisters, and the experience, which is about 100,000 experience or more if you happen to do an Invert and Sister grind, should be enough to push that one additional level for Palom and Porum to get their ultimate spells. They're both 51 right now, and they learn Nuke and White at 52.
Yep, and yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you in the sense that, and because, well, we know it takes roughly 10 D machines to go ahead and get Palom up to Nuke, Rydia up to roughly Nuke. It's like and the 3 to 4 minutes that it would still take to go ahead and finish out that D machine grind. That 3 or 4 minutes can be better spent running around blowing up most of the seed. The 100,000 at the element spot, and then all of the experience that you're going to get from the 4 bosses you have left to take care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't squander that experience. Everything that we get in the seed, whether it's experience, whether it's additional character, they're all resources available for you to use to try to get as quick a time as possible. But what will not be a quick time are these Maga Sisters, I'm afraid.
Nope, they are going to just be a rough time, just in general, and more of a slog than anything. And I say that because only Palom and Rydia have the spells capable of getting through them. Kind of curious to see what Mike does here with his Cecil. Does he zerk him up to go ahead and get that extra damage in? Or does he leave them just kind of hanging out on cover duty? Because those sisters I have seen in some particularly nasty spots where they do punch hard.
Mm-hmm. They punch relatively hard here. I want to say about 500 or so, but nothing to be worried about. That Cecil, however, I think is much more valuable being berserked up here. He'll chip in a little bit more damage, but notably, his actions will buffer the Q, which will allow you to have more time to input your Meteos, your Quakes, and allow you to get these spells off before the Maga Sisters have additional turns to act.
Yep, and we see a swag Meteo coming in from Palom on the left side. Not enough to kill anyone just yet, but you know what? Quad 9s across the board is always a pleasure to see.
Yep. You call it a swag Meteo, but I think in this case it may actually just be the right play. You could get maybe 2 Quakes off in the time that your Meteo actually fires, and that Meteo's going to do more damage than 2 Quakes. So Mike very heads up play here, knowing that I have this available. Let's just take care of it. Let's just cast it and try to get through this fight as quickly as possible. Because it's going to take about 4 to 5 of those Meteos to even get through this fight with the amount of HP each of these girls have.
Yep. And we see Mindy down.
All right, we're a third of the way there, but we're on a time clock right now. Cindy's going to revive that Mindy in about 2 turns if Cindy isn't taken care of. So hopefully one more Quake of another Meteor will do it. But we shall see.
Yep. I think one more Quake should do it from here. Yeah. Yep. That'll do it. One thing actually I just noticed on Scratchdragon's side is Scratchdragon actually has some mute arrows. So if he so chooses, I don't know if he's got any kind of a decent bow, but if he does have a decent bow, that could actually make his Mega Sisters fight a little bit easier.
A little faster potentially with Cecil being berserked up with those, but looks like we're still not done with it over on Mike's side. Are we going to get a revive? We are not.
We are not. Ding dong, the sister's dead.
There's our Nuke, there's our White. We are ready to go for the remainder of this seed.
Yep. And with that, a 4th boss for Mike. A little bit of magic inventory.
Yeah, do a little bit of spell rearranging right now, and then we'll likely be off to go throw a save in the previous room before he checks the final boss in here in the tower, or sorry, in the Giant of Babel.
Yeah, I mean, after getting everything situated, both spells and equipment, I most certainly would want to save. Because I don't know what's going to be there. It could be Wyvern, could be vanilla CPU, could be all Gauntlet.
Yeah.
Although all Gauntlet here isn't going to be too bad after the machine grind, really not much is, but there are still going to be some bosses that in the CPU spot will be a bit rough to deal with. And I mean, Dark Imps, not going to be any question to the matter. That's going to be a quick pass and a very much so quicker warping out.
I'm kind of surprised that Mike reset out of that fight. The Dark Imps, yes, you don't need them. And yes, you have Nuke and White already, but a quick stone from either Rydia or Palom would take care of that fight. And the amount of time that you're in the amount of time you spend warping out, resetting to get out of this giant, compared to the amount of time in the fight and the cutscene afterwards, it's pretty equivalent. So maybe we'll just kill him.
Yeah, it's kind of like the debate of, you know, when you go into Mist Cave, depending on your party, it's almost faster to just, you know, go ahead and take the fight. And, you know, if you want, there's one treasure chest from an elevated loot table right there. So in some cases, resetting versus just kind of taking the boss fights a little bit quicker.
Either way, Mike is out, and he is now on a hunt for potentially a fifth boss before he heads up to the moon. Statistically, you would expect to find about 1.9 bosses on the moon and on the giant combined. We went 1 for 2 already on the giant. So with 6 spots left on the LFT, you would expect only really to find 1 up there. So we're looking for at least 1 or 2 more bosses here on Earth before we head up to the moon, I believe.
Yep, and Mike making his way back down underground, going to kind of pop in to check the Fate March. He'll see, you know, kind of what's down there. Kind of debatable. With us knowing what's already down here, I mean, do you take the Fate March and hoping that maybe you get the Earth Crystal, maybe Twin Harp, or the Baron Key? Or do you just kind of, you know, save scum back out and continue face checking for bosses?
I have to admit, I'd probably be tempted to take the bosses down here. I don't remember them being too terrible in Ogopogo and the Val. I'm not sure if the Val has perfect magic defense in that spot or not, but even then, I'm missing a lot of key items that are currently gating bosses. There are still 6 bosses unavailable to me, one of which has a pretty good shot of being a required Gauntlet. So I am not ready to start fading these key item locations just yet.
Same, and so, you know, much like with Scratchdragon, we do see Mike go ahead and pick up his pass, and then looks like, well, I mean, it's a strong chance that he will take the Sparkle. You know, whether or not he resets, I mean, yeah, looks like he's going to reset out of that fight, and I don't think he's going to take that Val's fight. Although, even if Val does have perfect magic defense down here, I mean, you still have a Palisessel with a lightsaber and a power shard. You just zerk him up, blink the others, and, you know, let him do his thing. And honestly, it's a couple of quick fights at this point, you know, with the team that you have. So I mean, we'll see. It looks like he might go back up to the moon. Because yeah, I mean, honestly, if those 2 bosses in the Fate March have gating key items and suddenly they've been faded, that's going to be a lot of double and maybe even triple dipping for key items or bosses.
Sure. Yeah, so Mike deciding that Ogopogo Val is not for him. Understandable. Seems a little early to be in the face check mode, but maybe Mike feels a little pressured right now. Maybe he is wants to leverage the power of Nuke White as early as possible on the moon, maybe expecting to find 1 or 2 gating key items up here. Or maybe he's thinking, 3 of my bosses are up here, and I'll just find them up here, and I'll win in like an hour and 20 minutes. That easy, right?
Yeah, that's entirely possible because I mean, once you do get that darkness crystal, suddenly 8 boss checks open up to you.
And here's our
So,
first one that we can see in Odin, which we do not need today.
nope. Odin, Biden.
Yeah. I'm happy to not have to fight that Odin if I'm Mike and Scratchdragon because that is a very punchy spot. That Odin, very punchy.
Yep, and I mentioned about Punchy Magus Sisters. That is the last place I encountered them at, and for like on a Blue Moon sea that ran. Definitely not a spot you want to see someone who has uh, abilities for both magic and physical, because that's one of those spots that will hit you hard for both.
Mhm. So I think because Mike had the pass, he may feel that now is the time to check the moon because, well, it doesn't really matter anymore. I don't have to try to finish on the moon. When you don't have a pass, you want to finish on the moon because you don't want to walk the LST twice. At this point, Mike doesn't really seem to care about that.
Yep, and question to you then. You have all of this set up. You've got some decent gear. You've got your grind done. Do you face check going full top bottom, or do you start in reverse order and go bottom up?
I would probably start top and go bottom in this situation. Um, but I'm not faith checking. I'm actually killing them if I'm Mike or Scratchdragon because I still have all those required key items I need to find. And I don't want to walk this LST twice. So I'm with the power of Nuke White and Light Sword Cecil, and you're not going to find anything really nasty here like a Valvalis that you can't nuke because we already know where she is.
Yep.
All these fights are relatively quick.
Agreed. And yeah, I'm definitely right there with you. You know, having that your end game team already set up, gear pending. Yeah, I mean it's entirely understandable to go and just kind of like you mentioned, just not in the face check mode, but just kind of taking everything up here on the LSD so you don't have to do it twice. And so with that, we see Mike going into the White Spear altar and seeing a Kenazo.
Right,
Looks like
and
he is going.
yeah, Mike is in face check mode, which is very bold and could definitely work out for him. Or he may be just realizing he's on the wrong battle speed. We'll see what he does here. Maybe he goes straight to Ribbon Room, and he does. And what do we have here waiting for us? Oh, meanwhile, on Scratchdragon's side, that's 900,000 experience, I believe,
Yep.
which is, quite a bit, more than enough to get Porum and Palom, I believe, to like Nuke White. But notably, Scratchdragon did not pick up that Rydia, kept the Sid, so we only have Nuke White. We don't have Nuke White over on Scratchdragon's side. That may slow him down on some fights compared to Mike going forward.
Yeah, and speaking of Mike, we do see that he resets out of the Ribbon Room fight, which I believe I saw for a quick second was Paladin.
It was the
It
French
was,
Dragon.
yeah, oui, Monsieur Paladin. Au revoir, Monsieur Paladin. We see Rubicant at the Masamune altar. Again, another reset. So yeah, looks like Mike is for sure in face check mode. A very bold move. Uh, it kind of makes you wonder when not seeing any of your required boss checks up here. Uh, the it's got to be somewhere up there going. Okay, well, if I'm not seeing any of my required bosses up here, should I go back and just take them out because I have Nuke White?
Yeah, could be. It could be that Mike is just trying to exhaust his checks up here before he pretty much resigns himself to killing. He didn't save here before this Crystal Sword altar, so we'll have a moment to see. If he resets, he'll be back down in that Ribbon Room area, and he may take those fights there. Does find a Mom Bomb, that's required, so at least we're at 5 out of 7 now for Mike's side.
Yep. And speaking of, you know, not saving, uh, again, that is a bit of a bold move because, well, nobody was healed before this fight.
Yeah, and that Mom Bomb is having her way with the party right now. Very punchy spot, very punchy Mom Bomb, but looks like we may be stabilized.
Yep, I think, yeah, actually, that's going to be a good play. Getting the life up on everyone, so this way it puts them into auto cover mode. with the exception of Porum. Porum, child, you're standing on your own 2 feet. If you get punched into oblivion, blame yourself.
We'll just pick her back up. It'll be fine.
Yeah, although this is Porum we're talking about in the Red Moon Flags, I believe she'll pick herself up and punch back and take out Mom Bomb in one hit.
Based on some Porum activity that I've seen on Z fights, she can definitely hold her own. But one who can't hold her own is this Mom Bomb. That is boss number 7 for Mike. And do we get a gating key item? No, not at all.
No, that is a key item, just not a gating key item that we want right now. And with that, that will be 5 bosses on Mike's side. And speaking of bosses, it looks like that Scratchdragon is about to wrap up his fight with the Magus Sisters.
All right, so very bold move on Mike's side, exiting out, saying, I don't want to clear anything else on the moon that I don't have to. I'm not doing that ribbon room, that Masamian altar, that white sphere altar. So Mike is banking on the idea that my Baron key, my Luca key, my Twin Harp is not up here, or at least not down there. But he still had this Murasame altar to check.
Yep, I was just about to say, he does still, that is a lot of faith being placed into that Murasame altar. Is that the Murasame or the Masame? I always get the two mixed up.
It's the Murasame altar up here, and we have a little bit of a sister grind over on Scratchdragon's side. So we're going to be doing a lot more than 100,000 damage worth of HP up here on Scratchdragon's side, simply because those sisters revive at full HP, but he will have a lot more XP as a result of this fight.
Yep, and in the element spot, I mean, yeah, more XP makes the Z fight a little bit easier. Speaking of bosses on checks that we don't care for at some points, that was a Calamari or Octomam in the Murasame spot.
Yep, another not required boss, and another boss that Mike elects to just leave. So we are down to a very small handful of boss checks left remaining for Mike. We still have that tower key. We have the Rex banner, which is our community way of talking about the Zot 1 check. What else do we have, if anything?
We do still have the package check.
We do have the package check. That's true.
But aside from that, those are it. That is a whopping 3 checks. Although there is the idea that at the keyless tower check, that there is a gating key item.
Sure, and potentially behind the Fade March, potentially behind the tower key. Yep. But if you're Mike or a Mike fan right now, you're hoping that your gating key items are not waiting for you back up on that moon.
Yep, that would be that would be quite the thing.
But meanwhile, Scratchdragon is through those Magus Sisters. He's going to pop his head into the back, see these Dark Imps, and we'll see if he elects to take them, unlike Mike, who decided to walk on out of here.
Yep, I have a feeling that Scratchdragon is going to actually go ahead and just take this fight. It's a real quick and easy fight. It'll get you you'll get the warp. Yep, and it looks like he is taking that fight. Quick little AoE stone. Question is, nope, Tella's not going to live through that. But thankfully, we do have a backup Stonecaster.
We find a Sparkle here in the tower room. Mike lowered his battle speed and was anticipating Wyvern, doesn't find him, unfortunately. So, yeah, we have 3 bosses still out there. We have our Alt Gauntlet, our Wyvern, our CPU, and we are almost out of checks for them. We're down to 2, I believe. As mentioned, we have the Thought 1 check and the package check. If you're Mike, you're definitely hoping 2 of those 3 bosses you're looking for are back there. If not, you gotta start clearing the key items down.
Yep, and we will see what happens as a result of that Super Cannon room check.
Mm-hmm. And whether or not Mike takes his top of tower now, because he may be thinking key items at this point rather than face checking, and that appears to be the case. He'll take that Bahamut at the top of the tower.
Yep, with the power magical overwhelming that's had. Yeah, I mean that. With Bahamut just kind of sitting there doing his reverse count, it's going to be a very quick, a very easy fight.
Oh yeah, at this point, with the amount of power that Mike has, everything is a very easy, very quick fight. At this point, it's just routing efficiency. Can you make the right gambles? And Mike made a gamble to save most of those moon spots. And can you route that efficiently as possible, better than your opponent for the win? So it looks like Scratch will be heading up to the moon to do his checks. And it'll be a very interesting point of divergence if Scratch decides to take these fights looking for key items. We know only Mom Bomb is up here on the moon, and everything else is just not something that we need. But there could be that bearing key in the ribbon room, or an earth crystal behind here in the cave value, behind this Odin. And those could hold the bosses we're looking for.
Yep, and with Mike having 5 out of 7 bosses and Scratchdragon at 4 out of 7, it honestly could still go either way at just literally the drop of a hat or the blink of an eye. One check that the other runner didn't do. With the level of skill that both of these runners have, it literally could go either way at just any moment, which is fantastic.
So top of tower with a bit of a bust. Mike resets out. Doesn't want that crystal ring at all. Saved a little bit of time by doing so, but Mike is very, very focused by the looks of it on saving 5 seconds here, 10 seconds there. And we'll see if it pays off for him. That crystal ring, though, I agree, is not probably worth 10 additional seconds of your time.
Nope, definitely not, especially in a place where you can't exit out of, you can't warp out of, that you have to forcefully walk out of.
Yeah, we are running out of key item checks. So top of tower with Bupkis. We're about to see what Super Cannon is. If it's a whole lot of nothing too, that moon is looking better and better.
Very much so. And we see Scratchdragon going ahead and checking that Marasame altar. And we'll see if he does in fact decide to take it. It is just an Octoman fight because, that fight at this point is relatively free. Because the more that you hit him, the slower he gets. But still, if you're just kind of face checking everything, not really worth it. And it looks like the Super Cannon was also a bust, only giving a ribbon hat.
All right, so Mike left a save up here at the Crystal Sword altar after checking the tower. Found nothing, not checking Zot 1, not checking the package. I think now we're going to see him commit to clearing the moon and looking for a bearing key or any other type of gaining key item, because at this point, he probably doesn't think that Zot 1 and package are both exactly bosses that we need.
Yep, and definitely a smart move for Mike to have done to reset back out to the moon, because much like you said, none of the checks on the underground paid out. So the realization that the LST is looking more and more to have the goods, or to have that chaining rabbit hole for what's needed.
Yep, absolutely, and Ribbon Room will be our first stop. I think it was a turtle? No, it was a pale dip. Okay. But still relatively quick and easy to do with White Nuke, just like everything else on this moon is going to be. Don't blink, because you're going to see Mike done with all of these locations very, very quickly, as will Scratchdragon should he decide to take any of them.
Yep, and we see the fight that I've been mentioning. It's the Paladin versus Le Paladin.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I am here for it.
Oui.
We.
we are here for it. But yeah, Pale Dim shouldn't take much time at all. Unlike some other, even though it's supposed to be a white dragon, it still takes full damage from holy spells, from white spells. So, Porum can contribute if we want her to.
Yep. And we see, Scratchdragon going into the White Spear altar, Mike going into the Ribbon room. Which room will hold what, and whether or not that key item or those key items will be what we need. Very, very strong possibility.
All right, well, we found a Legend Sword, we found a Twin Harp. That is one gaining key item and Forge. I doubt we'll be seeing Forge today. But
highly doubtful.
That Twin Harp will pair up nicely with a Zot 1 check if Mike decides to do it. But Mike's not done yet. He's out back here still at this moon. He wants to do these checks, and by God, by gosh, we're going to do it. So now we have dueling Kenazo fights instead.
Yes, dueling turtles. You know, technically, Kenatsu is an instrument. It's kind of like a really big xylophone.
Really? Like, where how do you play a xylophone? Do you like blow into it or something, or do you hit it with like a hammer?
Yeah, you hit it with a hammer. You just kind of bonk the shell. Yeah, I mean, it looks like the ridges on Kenatsu's back, and different melody points. Is the lowest point of that tune being by his head, and then the highest point being back by what I believe he has a tail. So, just gotta play with it. Gotta make a little bit of a melody. How do you think we get all these random tunes in this?
I thought it was the power of Xenocat, but apparently it's the power of Kenazo.
I mean, you still need an instrument for music. So you need an instrument for music, and you need someone to play that instrument.
So Xenocat plays the Kenazo.
Yep, I believe Xenocat plays the Kenazo, makes the ever so amazing music that is featured in this seed.
Which we may eventually get to hear.
I believe we will, and if we do, we will definitely go more into that. Which, given the nature of this seed so far, I think we might.
Yeah, as mentioned, we've really run out of boss checks, and still 3 of them outstanding. That twin harp is looking better and better. Pairs nicely with that one, pairs nicely with package. They're all in the same general area. They're just not checks you want to do. That twin harp takes about 2-3 minutes to check. That package takes 2.5 minutes to get through. These are long checks, but we're really just running out of options. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel right now.
Yep, and given the spot where Rubicon is, it is a particularly nasty spot. That is in the vanilla game, the Ogopogo location, which has a surprisingly amount of physical attack and magical attack. So Rubicon's punches, his fire 2s, fire 3s, and the glares are all going to hit really, really hard if you don't get hit in time.
Oh yeah, this is one of the more challenging locations in the game for really any boss. It hits hard, it casts magic hard, no matter who it is, no matter what. It's also one of the locations of one of the nastiest alt continents out there, which luckily for our runners tonight isn't here.
Yes, definitely a sigh of relief. I mean, I'm all for a bunch of evil mask fights, but in this particular seed, I'm okay with seeing someone else here for tonight. And we see Mike through that fight with relative ease.
Mike is through this fight, gets his Earth Crystal, so that's one additional boss we have available to us. We still have a grand total of 4 bosses not available behind that Baron Key and that Luca Key, but we have just opened up at least a couple more checks for us. Mike may feel this is enough to go back and start face checking again, or he may be focused instead on full clearing this moon.
Yep, and so I think I actually go ahead and agree with chat on this. Seeing that Earth Crystal pop up, that is a chase. Given with what our runners, well, at least on Mike's side, or just both of our runners, knowing what bosses are where at this point and the amount of checks left, that is a wholehearted chase. Whether or not they, go ahead and do Earth and then Twin Harp, or go ahead and do Twin Harp first and then Earth, along with package, depending on who yields what, it's gonna get real interesting real fast.
Sure. Well, it looks like Mike is agreeing with your and Chaz's assessment. Back to Earth he goes. Likely to do Twin Harp into Earth Crystal and hope to find something at those 3 boss checks. And maybe Mike will check package shortly after too for the whole 4 boss checks available to him. Now again, I just want to remind everyone that we did see a blue robe that gave us our starting key item, so if that is our alt gauntlet, then we know that Baron Key has at least one of our bosses. So we would be hoping for potentially a CPU and a Wyvern here.
Yep, and it looks like that Mike is going to go ahead and take that Zot 1 and 2 check. Because actually, yeah, actually, to go ahead and agree with Chad, I think that if you're looking to go the efficiency route, you want to go Twin Harp into Earth Crystal, because Earth Crystal, after doing Zot 2, will go ahead and dump you off in front of Baron. But if Zot 2 pays out and is the Baron key, then that's just beautiful, beautiful RNG at its finest.
I do want to note that Scratchdragon has opted to take these fights his first time down the moon, unlike Mike, who reset or left the moon in order to go check that tower key before saves coming back to the moon. That's going to pick up Scratchdragon a bit of time. He's going to find this Mom Bomb up here, Crystal Sword Altar, and then maybe following Mike down into the Tower of Thoth, into the Twin Harp. So while it does seem like Mike has a little bit of a lead right now, and that blue row right there indicating to us that, yes, indeed, there is a required boss, an Alt Gauntlet, behind that first spot in Baron, Scratchdragon is closer than it appears.
Yep, because much like, we were kind of talking about earlier, whether or not you go do the full top down or if you do the bottom up, on Scratchdragon's side, him opting in to take all of these fights initially is saving him a lot more time than what may be led to believe, because he's not having to go double or even triple dip into certain areas to go and check them, whereas they could have been checked early on. So that's going to save him time. He's going to see all these items, and while he's waiting for certain events to kick off, it will give him a little bit of extra time to figure out what routing he wants to take once he does get back to the blue planet.
So now we get to play a fun little game called Piggy Meta. So now that we have pigs in place of recruited characters, the piggies' colors will change based on the boss we expect to see. So if we see, for example, a black or void piggy in this next room right here, it's either CP or Evil Wall.
Yep.
I believe it's a white pig, however.
That is a white pig.
Can a white pig be a Lunar Sparkle like Wyvern?
I believe so.
Well, Mike is expecting so, because that is a 6 battle speed. We are down to Wyvern standard time. And we will see if his caution is rewarded.
Nope,
And it
that
is not.
That is a karate.
So
Relatively
Wyvern.
free fight.
Yeah, extremely free. Everything's free at this point. I mean, 6k HP here. This nuke is going to do far more than that. We won't even hear an ouch. We're just going to disintegrate this poor Yon into nothingness. But yeah, Wyvern remains champion of hide and go seek right now, along with that CPU. We're kind of down to, at this point, knowing that Alt Gauntlet is at Baron 1. If this doesn't result in a Baron key, I'm expecting a Twin Harp check and a package check from Mike immediately after this.
Yep. Actually, I'm gonna hold my thought for after the port exit back down to Baron, but I feel like at this point it's gonna be a Twin Harp check, because the package won't yield a key item, and you need that gating key item to go ahead and try and finish out the rest.
Oh,
and
there
that
it
is the gamble that pays. That's gonna port you down back to Baron, which is, you already have the Baron key on Mike's side, and I have a sneaking suspicion that Baron is also going to be hard required.
Well, at this point, Mike is in go mode. We have one missing gating key item, which is that Luca key, which means only one boss check in the game is unavailable to Mike, meaning he is guaranteed to be able to find 7 bosses if he checks every boss available to him. Therefore, he is faith checking back in faith check mode after aborting that a little earlier, and we're going to see Mike go through these checks very, very fast.
Yep, and I wonder if Mike will go take care of that Alt Gauntlet, and then go down to Baron Basement to check to see what's down there. because if what you see is down there, then I mean that's the gamble, you know, where you walk and it pays out. Um, but there could always be, you know, going up to the throne and you having your boss there. Now, on the flip side of things, none of the other bosses in Baron could be required, and the last two bosses behind Luca and or Twin Harp or Package,
Sure, absolutely. I
and then
would
we're just
if I was in Mike's shoes right now, I would probably just liberate Baron and then save scum the Odin throne if Baron throne didn't happen to be one of the bosses I need. But he could very well swag on down to that Odin boss, and the issue with that, however, is if it's not something you need, you have to kill it anyway, because you're not going to reset out and then redo this all gauntlet all over again.
right now. Scratchdragon, on the other hand, is going to go ahead and take that Odin fight at Cave Bahamut.
Yep. So he took that Octoman fight at the Marasami altar. He is committed to full clearing this moon. He doesn't want to come back. And little does he know that he actually has the tools in hand right now to pretty much put himself into go mode just like Mike. The question is, how quickly does he act on that?
Well, I suppose that'll solely depend on what he gets from this fight.
Well, this is his last check on the moon, so he's leaving whether he wants to or not after this.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Mike dispatched Senator Crocodile, currently working on Council and Aquaworm. All of these monsters, trying to bring democracy to Baron, overthrow King Cecil and the monarchy. I don't think it's going to work.
Nope. These fish, they want to be elected officials. But, unfortunately, like I said, even with the senator in here and the elected officials, it's just, it's not really going to work out.
I don't know how to respond to that one. I'm just going to pretend I didn't hear it. Chad heard it, though.
I had to get in at least a small string of puns. Don't worry, folks. I won't water it down for you. Moving on, we see Mike heading to the throne room. Gonna liberate Baron. Will it be his 7 out of 7 boss?
I'm drowning in humor here, but no, it's just DKC. So CPU, Wyvern, both still outstanding at the moment. But this is very exciting over here. Scratchdragon heading straight up the Tower of Zot, which we know is the right play. He is going to find his Baron key by completing this tower. Still hot on Mike's tail. Not going to be, off in a different direction. Maybe potentially checking that Twin Harp or that package, which could cost some time.
Yep, and much like I mentioned earlier, literally anything can happen at the drop of a hat. The correct or right check, and we see even though that Scratchdragon full cleared the moon, he is right on Mike's trail. Yeah, there we go. He's hot on Mike trails, and it's going to be one of those things that we'll see how close this is going to be. And Scratchdragon getting the news that the first boss seen in this seed is in fact going to be the All Gauntlet.
Yep. So I'm sure Scratchdragon had a little bit of excitement there, like, finally I found my All Gauntlet, and no. No, it's just a water hag, I'm afraid.
A funny time indeed. And thankfully,
a Luca key.
That is a Luca key. So, given, well, actually, he does. Mike does have one more check here in the Baron Castle. Probably fingers crossed. Hoping up and down that that Baron basement boss is just either Wyvern or CPU. Probably hoping for a CPU. I wouldn't necessarily, even with the power overwhelming that Mike does have, Wyvern down here is still going to hurt a lot. Because I think
Wyvern? Here? Wyvern isn't dangerous here. He doesn't quad 9 anybody.
No, I thought the magic was bumped up here.
Oh no, he quantized everybody.
Oh, okay, yeah. I couldn't tell for a moment there. I'm like, is he being sarcastic? No, no, okay.
Oh no, I've experienced this blarg many times, but
Oh yes.
Mike was very, very well prepared for this. Dropped his battle speed to 5 before entering this fight. Walls going up, Star Veil's going up. Telesethel going to have a bad day. Wyvern going to have an equally bad day.
Yep. Tella is well, realizing just how bad that Mega Nuke does hurt to the face, even if you're a 1,000-year-old sage, or however old Tella and his hair is.
I mean, Tello looks ancient to me, like 90, but apparently he's only like 60.
Yeah, I think he's like 57 or 60.
Which is super weird because, I mean, look at him, look at Anna, who's supposed to be his daughter. I mean, Anna looks like she's like 23. Like, what happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Tella is confirmed. Yes. I almost said his age is level 60.
Mm-hmm. And that's a rat tail. But more importantly, our crystal from completing our 7th boss, CP will remain champion of hide and go seek tonight. Path in hand, Mike is ready to go.
Yep, and we will see Mike swag walking at a Baron like he owns the place.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you're Mike right now, you might actually feel a little behind because you did spend time doing a lot of WAPs. Checking Lower Tower of Babel, finding nothing there, resetting or leaving the moon, having to reset to the save to come back to it. He may be playing a little risky because he may feel slightly behind against someone like Scratchdragon, who, being around the community so long and having played in all these tournaments, is a very experienced racer and could be hot on your tail. And Mike would be correct because Scratchdragon is hot on his tail. He may not have much time. He may not even be able to take a wipe to the Zemus fight, and Zemus never free. So we'll see how he handled it.
Yep. And with that idea that you may be behind, it kind of does lean into the idea of making some of those more cheeky or spicy checks. Going to do a check that a lot of people might otherwise fade, or not the more common check made in these particular flag sets. And I speak of course the twin harp and the package check. While yes, they are longer, they are generally not necessarily checked for those reasons. But given the position that Scratchdragon is, and he may find himself going ahead and doing one of those.
Potentially, but before we get to, or before we think about more of that, there's a bunch of Z flags in chat. It is 1:30 in the morning over here, so I understand it is about way past my bedtime, actually, even though it's the weekend. But I think they're referencing something else, and a question that we like to ask. So, Blue, if you'd like to do the honors.
Well, given that Z can't be randomized, he is left in his spot. We do like to give him the ability to cosplay. So the biggest question of the night is, whose butt will we kick? Is butt cute? Does it have a butt? Does butt have a hat? Is it a butt hat?
A butt hat?
Be? I mean, look at all that hair. There's got to be a hat in there somewhere.
Is it on Amazon? Can I buy it?
Yes. And if not, check Etsy.
I mean, we were talking about Halloween earlier. I still need a hat. Oh, there is a butt hat. This is great.
Speaking of, we have a Bubsy mess.
Bubsy, put on some pants.
Please, there are children. Actually, no. I think Bubsy is wearing pants.
Is he? Like flesh-colored pants?
Yeah, kind of like the flesh-colored leggings.
Oh, I see that at the gym all the time.
And Bubsy throwing out some nukes, some powerhouse gym rat nukes to the face on D-roll Tella.
Mm-hmm. We are getting confirmation from Scala Kitty. Bubsy is in fact not wearing pants, which is what I thought from the games that I played back in my childhood, and I hate playing those games. So Bubsy, put on pants, please. There are children present. But the nukes are flying out. This is a relatively textbook reflex strats from Mike with 2 nukers, a white caster. This Bubsiness, not long for the world.
Yep, and we see Cecil attempting to contribute with a whopping 915 damage.
Cecil's helping, okay? I mean, someone has to escort all these kids around. He's been babysitting the kids with Tella the entire siege. Tella is exhausted, taking a nap. He just wants to go to bed. It's late.
Yep, and don't worry not. This Z fight will be put down to rest here momentarily. Uh,
Yeah, probably the thing I hate most about Bubsy is that his Twitter actually signs itself. So like dash Bubsy at the end. Like, I know who you are. It's your Twitter account. Why are you signing your tweets? Come
yeah,
on,
I mean,
Bubsy.
surprisingly enough, not the OG Bubs. I believe there is a signature Marvel character that has that, and just for the viewers at home, we do have, technically Zeromus is the elusive 8 out of 7 boss required, as so casually seen on potentially one of our boss squares there. Cough, cough. Uh, Swagamus, I think it is.
Wagnermith is down because that final nuke puts the nail into the coffin for Bubsy, and with a time of about 1 hour, 42 minutes, and change. mikemike34 takes victory here over Scratchdragon and will advance in the Waning Red Moon bracket to play Zilch next week. GG's to him.
Very much GG's indeed. We see Scratchdragon running over and getting a Luca key. We will see here, and actually by that dinghy in my ears, I believe that is a Mike joining us for an interview. Mike, GG's.
Thank you.
Tell us about your experience in this seed. We saw some pretty gnarly checks.
Yeah, I bet if you were to draw the routing tree of how I routed, it'd be kind of like some type of Rubik's cube.
Yeah, I almost equated to some of those uh, theory crafting maps, people with the string and the pins. Just now, hear me out. There's a method to the madness, and but your method in this madness definitely paid out.
Yeah, there's a lot of resets, a lot of save scumming. I had like multiple save scum strategies if something was at each point. It was is such a wild seed with everything behind that Ruby can't. And I almost faded it too. I was glad I played it defensively. Um, I got the harp, and my inclination is to chase the harp and hope everything's behind it. But I really thought it's behind a Baron key, and I didn't ever want to go back to the bottom of the moon, so I went and did that ruby.
Yep, and a question we were both kind of wondering here in the booth. Face checking versus, uh, you know, trying to maybe get some of those key items. What was your deciding factor in doing that when you got to the moon?
The deciding factor was that I faded 2 key item checks in tower. So at first I just wanted to see if I could get my 3 bosses up there. I knew it was a long shot. And if I had 2, I was going to go check Zot 1 and then package. But I only had 1 boss on the moon, which meant fade package, because that cannot lead to my go mode. It could only give me 1 boss. So I left a save up on the moon and decided I was going to do a quick tower check and make sure Baron Key wasn't behind any of that. When it wasn't, then I returned back to the moon and then just full clear the bottom.
Yep, and we saw that some of the more particularly nasty bosses, and particularly can very much stay there for the rest of the seed checks.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally want to fight, but that's why I did the D machine as soon as finding darkness instead of waiting for 10. It was kind of it wasn't the cleanest D machine fight I've ever had, but it did pay off with the Mega Sisters right after.
Yep, we did see the weak on the searcher, but a quick recovery by throwing a cure pot on it. Very well done there. Raibon, did you? I'm gonna pause on talking here, and I'll let you go ahead and do some questions.
Sure thing. So, Mike, first of all, GG. Then, yeah, that was a very interesting route you took. When you decided to depart the moon, head to the tower of Lower Tower of Babel, found a couple zongs down there. Did you feel behind at that point, or you're just like, well, now I'm just gonna go check key items?
I was getting a little nervous, but at that point, I knew that things were buried behind things. And I did like that I did the D machine, and I knew that with that save scum, I was going to blast through whatever bosses that those key items could be behind. So, I actually felt more behind or early game. It felt really slow to me. As 31 minutes, I think, going down the hook route.
Second question too. You had that package burning a hole in your pocket since that fourth castle you did early on. Did the thought of checking it ever cross your mind?
Yeah, is really gonna be predicated on how many bosses I needed to be to go mode. Since I assumed I needed a key item because we saw those blue robes from the beginning, and the package can't give me that key item, I was gonna save it until I was down to one boss left. And seeing as the basement had go mode, that is how I handled it. But yeah, anytime I got to one boss, package was going to be next.
Gotcha. Well, then one more question for you from me. You are moving on. You avoided elimination from the Red Moon tournament today, moving on to play Zilch next week in another best of one series. How are you feeling about that match, and what are you expecting to change, if anything, with your playstyle?
Well, Red Moon is just such a gauntlet, and every win you take, you're getting a little closer to the teeth of the shark, right? And Zilch is going to be quite the adversary. I'm not going to be able to afford to play defensively. I'm going to have to be more aggressive than I was in this match, I believe. Even though being defensive won me, this match, I can't afford that against him.
Well, if anyone knows how to be aggressive, I mean, certainly it's you, Mike. I mean, based on the games we played in the past, your aggression wins games. So I'm very much looking forward to your play next week and seeing how you pair against Zilch and see if you can take another win.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody that put this on tonight. We had Neon rolling one heck of a seed, Mecha tracking, and Blue, thank you, and Rybon is special shout out to you, because I'm partially only here because of all the tough runs I've had against you. You've always been a couple steps ahead of me, which has forced me to keep upping my game, and now I'm moving on to the next round.
Well, you certainly earned it, and like I said, looking forward to it next round. Looking forward to it next week. Not sure when your game's going to be, but I'll definitely be watching the Discord to see when you two decide to put it on for us.
All right, yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Absolutely. And yeah, GG's again.
GG's.
All right, and looking over at Scratchdragon's side, he has now completed his Wyvern fight in the Odin Throne room. So we've got a Crystal on his side. He'll be heading on up to do his Z fight. Again, he's short one Bridia compared to Mike, so his Reflex Strats will take a little longer, but at this point, I don't think anything's going to stop or stand between Scratchdragon and victory.
Nope. The only thing that's going to be standing between Scratchdragon and a crumbling Zeromus is going to be just some cast times. Or if we happen to be ever so fortunate enough to see a crumble skip on Scratchdragon's side. Remember, folks, words are hard.
So it's parking, unfortunately. That's a parking ticket for Scratchdragon, I'm afraid. Parking the Falcon outside the Tower of Thought doesn't get it removed, I'm afraid. So a little bit of a walk from south of Troya, but a little walk never hurt anyone. Stretch your legs before the final battle to save mankind, I guess.
Yep.
Checking shops one more time, but I don't think there's anything he needs here.
Nope, none of the We have cabins at home shop. Either one's not gonna do a whole heck of a lot.
We have cabins at home. Cabins at home. Tempt.
Yep, they're those cabins in the Chora shop they were the cabins we have at home. Premium cocoa cabins hold a special place in my heart. Then we see Scratchdragon making his way to the moon, to that Zeromus cosplaying as Bubsy Must Fight.
So did you ever play Bubsy when you were a kid?
I think I do believe I did. Except I didn't actually, neither me nor my brothers owned it, but I do recall going over to a friend's house to play it like once or twice.
What do you remember about that game?
I don't, and that's probably a good thing.
God, it was such a terrible platformer.
But had to make some kind of hip and cool animal to relate to the youngsters of that time, and I feel like I just dated myself again.
I mean, I think we were the youngsters at that time.
We were.
God, we're so old. But regardless, no, Bubsy was terrible. If I remember correctly, like, if you fell, like, too far, you just died. There was no way to, land appropriately. Even though you're a cat, you're supposed to land on 4 feet or 4 legs and, always be safe. It just didn't make any sense to me. And anything, like, something is sneezed on you, dude, die in that game. So nothing makes me happier than seeing Bubsy get nuked to the face tonight.
Yep. There's a very short list of cosplay Zeromus sprites that I'd like to see just kind of crumble down into nothingness. Bubsy isn't quite on that list yet, but looking at just kind of some of the original artwork for that game, it's kind of nightmare fuel. Looking back at it as an adult. And so he's kind of slowly making his way up that list of people I definitely don't mind see crumble skipping. Amidst the top of that list would be the dog, Duck Hunt. That dog, every time. Every time.
I've unloaded my my pistol into that dog every single time, and he just keeps on laughing at me.
Yep, but when, I do believe he is one of the sprites in the. Somebody correct me, but nearly 600, if not, I think we've crossed the 600 sprite threshold.
I think we're just shy of it right now, and just so I'm aging myself again, that gun attachment for the Nintendo Entertainment System, was that pistol, was that called a light gun?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I loaded my light gun into that dog every time, and I kept on missing the ducks, and he would just laugh at me. Oh, I hate that dog.
We all hate that dog.
He was apparently not hated enough because I think he made Smash Bros.
Did he really?
Yeah, I think Duck Hunt is in there. I haven't played Smash Bros, at least the most recent one, but I think he's in there.
That's I don't know how I feel about that. I don't.
I definitely don't like it. I'm like, come on, Sentinel or Rydia should be in Smash before, Duck Hunt. Come on.
I know.
They were on the Super Nintendo.
They were. They were on the Super Nintendo, they skipped a few consoles. They were on the Game Boy.
They were? Were they on the Game Boy?
What? So they were not.
They got
There
Game Boy
were
Advance.
Did they get Game Boy Advance?
I guess it was
Yes,
Game Boy
yes.
Advance.
It was Game Boy Advance. Yeah, because there were some Final Fantasies for the Game Boy. But yeah, not Cecil and Rydia. And we do see. I'm sorry. Did Porum just whiff a white spell?
So what unfortunately happened is that the wall effect on Palom nuked himself, and Porum was queuing a white on that Palom as well, but without a target, it just whiffed entirely. So a little bit of difficulty with the reflect strat on Scratchdragon's side. He did use a more advanced strat. He zerked up, I believe, his melees, and then used a Unihorn to cancel out the Berserk effect in order to try to finish this off and get reflective spelled off to trigger the kill without, triggering the counter that refills his HP. But it looks like with that nuke coming out, we are actually in phase 2 of this fight. So there is no more HP refill skips or anything like that. We just got to keep on going.
Yep, because even yeah, because it's what I keep hearing different numbers for that uh kind of hit point window.
Hmm.
I've heard like 41, I've heard 42,000. That then you go ahead either through dart or spoon, or you hit them with a direct nuke cast. Uh, what is that sort of window that you want to stop hitting him with things?
Well, I'm very conservative with this, so I try to stop inflicting direct damage on him around 37 to 39,000 HP. But I believe the refill trigger is actually around 44 to 45,000 HP.
Okay, that
Other, pe- Other people have told me it's 42,000, like our track on Mecha Link, but I just try to avoid that as much as possible. So once I hit like that 39k threshold, I'm no longer doing direct damage unless I think it's going to kill.
completely understandable. And unfortunately, because neither of our runners found you know either of the top tier swords, that Pally Cecil isn't going to do nearly as much damage as one would like, and it's just going to be solely left up to our casters.
But our caster, they're up to the task. White Nuke taking care of this relatively quickly. I'm sure this Bubsy miss not long for the world, and of course, Cecil Sid both contributing. And down goes Bubsy a second time tonight. Scratchdragon finishing in second place with a time of, I believe, about 157, 158.03 official time. So just a little bit behind Mike, but still GG to Scratchdragon finishing out this game.
GG's to Scratchdragon indeed, and down goes Bubsy Miss. You, sir, are no longer the cat's meow.
Just go away, Bubsy, and take your remake game with you.
By that dinging in my ear, we are joined by a Scratchdragon. Hello and GG's. Completely okay. Talk as much or little as you like. Very much so. We saw your routing, we saw your play, we saw, obviously everything. Um, what would be your overall thought on this seed as a whole?
Where was CPU?
Good question. CPU was champion of hide and go seek tonight. Not even Mike found him.
Yep, took the title from Wyvern.
But based on what we saw, it either had to be behind Package, behind Twin Harp, and that might have been it.
Behind Luca also potentially.
So one of three locations then.
Then I was just as hopelessly behind as I thought I was. I don't feel like I played the early part of the seed particularly well.
From the commentator booth, I feel like your routing was rather efficient, and for that, my hat is off to you. If I was wearing a hat, it would be off to you. But overall, I think that your routing was very nice. That you played a very solid run of this particular seed, um, or particular flag set. It was, it had its moments where the bosses and the kind of location of the key items weren't exactly favorable, but when you got up to the LST, you know there a moment of, or rather when you saw the darkness crystal, did you have a moment of, okay, let me go ahead and finish some of my writing down below, or like what was the deciding factor between just kind of face checking the moon versus completing more of the route?
Um, I had to remind myself actually, but I knew Bahamut was on the top of tower, and I knew what the other two Fame March bosses was, which means all that was left was tower, which I probably could have solo checked tower and reset out once I saw if I saw something I didn't want there. So I had those four checks left over, and if those were gated to any other bosses that I needed to find, then I would have had to just come back after I grinded and beat those bosses anyway. So I just said, let me go ahead and do my grind, check the boss, which Vega Sisters behind Giant, which seems to be a standard thing at this point. And and then I was just checking all the bosses on the moon, hoping that it was a 1, 2, 3 thing, but I mean, it's never that simple.
Never that simple, but oddly enough, kind of pays out sometimes. We saw that all of the just shy of 1 million XP after your D machine grind, followed by the Maga Sisters fight, followed by that super simple CPU spot, Dark Imps fight. Um, nope, I blanked on the rest of that train of thought. Rybon, I will pass the mic over to you.
Sure thing. So Scratch, first of all, the start of your game, I wouldn't feel too down about it at all. For the most part, you and Mike were, stride for stride, routing exactly the same. You know, finishing up ordeals, going straight to Fabul, going straight to that Demus before that Baron in and everything like that. You guys were pretty much like leg locked in regards to your routing. So, and I saw nothing wrong with your routing. Your routing is fantastic. Um, and then I think you had a little bit of advantage over Mike heading up to that moon and deciding to take those lunar dioceses, those lunar altars first, rather than resetting out and going back to the lower Tower of Babel to do key item checks there. So your routing was solid for the most part in the seed. I think the biggest difference between the two of you was that Mike took a second nuker in that Rydia, whereas you decided to keep that Sid. What was your calculus behind that decision?
I was keeping the Sid for the early game. I could have kept the Iridia and then had to slingshot for Iridia, but I didn't really know how the seed was really going to turn out. So I just said, let me keep at least two strikers. It shouldn't really make that much of a difference. I think the Sid was doing me well. The only problem I would say I had was I just didn't have a bow to abuse those mute arrows that I picked up. And by the time I found one, I was like, well, you're way too late. So
Fair enough. And yeah, for the most part, that second Sid can definitely, pay dividends later in the seed, especially if you find something that you just need a big bucket of HP for. But I think that was the primary difference between the two, you and Mike. Mike took that additional risk with that additional second nuker, got through fights slightly faster than you. But otherwise, yeah, very similar routing, very well run on your part. But unfortunately, with this loss and this being Wayne in bracket, you're unfortunately at the end of your tournament run. But I assume you'll be back this coming spring for the next tournament.
but of course, would never miss a Final Fantasy free enterprise tournament for the world.
It wouldn't be a tournament without you.
No, I mean, I'm making an early exit this time, but I mean, we'll be back with, well, hope everyone's neck is clean. So we're gonna come back with a vengeance on it. Just this one was just a rough one.
Hey,
Yeah,
Rando's gonna rando like that.
I think I randoed myself this time. But no, as always, thanks to everyone who can makes this tournament possible. The commentators, the restreamer, the tracker, everyone who watches, the tournament organizers, uh, all the participants. Good luck to everyone. Good luck to Mike with the next round, and I hope to see you guys next tournament season.
absolutely. I'll be keeping an eye out for you. Got to
Likewise.
keep my neck clean and all, and intact.
Mm.
All right, Scratchdragon, you have yourself a great rest of tonight. Take a load off, kick the feet up. You've earned it, sir.
All right, thanks, guys.
And thank
Take
you.
care.
Rybon, is that it? We good for the rest of the night? Signing off. Time for bed.
I think we're done for tonight, at least here for official Blue Moon, Red Moon races. But we'll be heading on over to Fluffy Cactus, who I believe is running some free enterprise as well. So before we kick off this raid, I just want to note that if you haven't given our runners tonight a follow, Mike, Scratchdragon, they put on a heck of a show. They had a very difficult seed tonight, and they both displayed, just brilliance in their routing and brilliance in their play. So you're missing out if you're not watching their streams. By all means.
Yes, and a word to everyone before we do go over, please no spoilers. Some people do want to go ahead and check out the match that they had not gotten a chance to. In addition, we do have the first restream of tomorrow is going to be between Smithy and Saturday at noon, 12 p.m. Eastern time.
Yep, another full day of races tomorrow. So keep an eye out on our Discord. But noon, is it? We'll see you then.